Welcome to Fine is a Four-Letter Word. My guest today is Jennifer Ramirez. Welcome to the show, Jennifer.
Thank you. Thanks for
My
having me.
pleasure. Jumping right into the important meaty stuff. What were the values and beliefs that you were raised with that contributed to who you became as a young adult?
Yeah, so I was raised in a very religious household, Christian. My parents were extremely strict, so I couldn't go past like the third house over. Very, very strict household. And we also were not really, I guess, just like we weren't really taught a lot of things in a weird way, if that makes sense. Like we weren't taught like life lessons and here's what you do when this happens and here's how you handle, this when that happens. It was kind of just like we were just there. So, as I became older, I started realizing like, wow, there's a lot of things that I had to figure out on my own that I had absolutely no idea how to handle, right? So yes, I mean, I also had no boundaries and also was sexually abused as a kid, which also made me, I was also very, very shy. Shy to begin with, and then the sexual abuse made me even more shy and untrusting of people. That's how I grew up. I grew up being very kind of to myself. Like I did have friends and things like that, and had problems socializing, and that which was something that didn't help as I became an adult. But yeah, so that's just a really, really quick overview of like how I was raised and how I became the adult that I am and was.
That makes sense. Of course, if you're, yeah, that you would have kept to yourself if you started out as an introvert to
Hmm.
start with and then had all of that trauma that
Absolutely.
you wouldn't trust people. Yeah. Yeah. And so then did that inability to trust people, how
Uh,
did that play out
yeah. So I
as
definitely
you
had
got
a lot of
older?
trust issues with girls too, with women, because as you know, girls can be very mean, especially when you're growing up and when you're in middle school, high school, even college, even can be hard. So I didn't have a lot of friends, but I had, just a handful of people that I trusted and that I stuck with. And then romantic relationships as well. I didn't really like I wasn't out there dating, but I did have like a serious relationship when I was in high school, and it was my high school sweetheart, which was actually a good experience. It was a good like first time experience for me, and it was a normal relationship until I got a little bit older, and then I started dating toxic guys that I had no business dating either. So, yeah, so it did definitely affect me and the choices that I made.
Well, and that makes sense kind of because that makes sense kind of because you
Yeah.
of the role models that you had growing up. How would you have been able
Right.
to make better
Yeah,
choices if that's
absolutely.
not what
Yeah.
you
So
were
I
seeing?
didn't really, and I also didn't see my parents with a lot of friends either. They also stuck to themselves or more their family members and stuff. So I kind of just grew up thinking like friends weren't really a big deal, that type of stuff. I knew they were for me personally, but I didn't put so much emphasis on it. I still am very ambitious, very goal driven. So I was all about like getting to the next level. So, when I was in high school, I was working on what am I going to do for college? And then when I was in college, I'm like, okay, what's my next move? So that's what a lot of my focus was more than usual, like teens usually just all about their friends and socializing and going out. And I didn't go out a lot, stuff like that. So yeah. That's a
Where did
great
that
question
drive
because I
come from?
always wonder like where I am very, very different from the rest of my family. I'm very ambitious, very independent, don't need anybody to tell me anything. Like I've never needed like direction in a sense, Like I don't know. I'm very happy though that I am like this. I'm very happy that it turned out like that because I've been able to accomplish a lot of things, but I do think actually it comes from like both of my parents were very hardworking people. So I think that drive of like, and it was also taught to me like you have to work hard for the things that you want. Things don't just come to you. You have to, so I knew that I had to work hard. But, I saw my parents work, but that's it. I didn't see them going for other goals or doing other hobbies or being involved in anything other than working and coming home to the kids,
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And so then as you got older and were going through college, I, were you working all the time? And when did you, because it sounds
hmm
like you're still ambitious, however, that you have
hmm
discovered that friends are important too.
Yeah. So when I started college, I was 17 actually. I actually graduated early. And I actually moved to the city, to Chicago, when I was 19. So I went to school for one semester at Loyola downtown, and then I actually dropped out because I lost my motivation when I moved to the city. It was a completely different world. I grew up in the suburbs, so when I came out here, I was exposed to a whole bunch of different things and people that I had never been exposed to in my life. So I kind of lost it, turned into a big party girl. All I wanted to do was have fun. I kind of like lost that ambition. And then probably a year and a half later is when I got pregnant with my daughter, which was a blessing because it calmed me down and it set my mind back to like, okay, what are we going to do? You can't just go out all the time and have fun. Like now you have a responsibility, you have somebody that's depending on you. Like, what are you going to do? And I actually did try to go back to college twice when she was a baby, but it was like impossible because one, she was too little at one point and she needed too much of my attention and time. And I just couldn't do the course load and be a single mom. And then the other one was like I couldn't afford to pay babysitter. These people wanted money for babysitting her, and I just didn't have the means to do that. So I was like, it's either school or my bills and my rent, and I obviously had to live, so I had to pay my rent and stuff first. So that was kind of one of the downfalls. But it wasn't until I turned 25, 26 is when I started really going back to college and taking it very seriously, which again was a blessing in disguise because now you're older, so you're in a different mind frame, so you take it a little bit more seriously. And I actually enjoyed it. Like I turned into a nerd. I was like, I like learning. Learning's fun. So so it did, in my opinion, everything worked out the way it was supposed to. And I did really well also going back as an adult. Even as a single parent and everything, I was on high honors and got really good grades, but I really did enjoy being in school. So yeah, so it's never too late. I always tell people that I have meet a lot of women that are like, I'm in 50s, 60 years old, and it's too late for me. I'm like, no, it is never too late. You can be, 80, 90 if you want to be and still go back to school or do whatever it is that you want to do.
Absolutely. I think of that story, I don't remember where I first heard it, but of a woman who wanted to go back to school to become
Mm.
an attorney or a doctor or something, but she was like, "Oh, but I'm 50 years old already." And somebody said, "So how long is it going to take you to get your
Right.
degree?" And I don't know, it's 5 years, 8 years, whatever. So I'll be 58 by the time I have my degree. Okay,
Exactly.
well, you're going to be
Yep.
58
That's something.
anyway,
There's a
so why
saying.
not
There's a saying that says the time will pass
be 58 and
anyway.
have a
So you're
degree?
either going to take that, 5-year degree and you'll have a degree in 5 years, or 5 years will pass and you still won't have your degree. So, I think that's really important to remember.
Right. Yeah, yeah, exactly. When we were talking on in our conversation before we were recording, you were telling me about the time when everything in your life was fine. Obviously, the show fine is a four-letter word. When things were fine,
hmm
but they really weren't fine. Can you talk a little bit about that and how you moved
Sure.
from there to
So,
where you are
like I had
now?
mentioned, I went through childhood sexual abuse as a kid, and then I went through a lot of domestic and sexual assault as an adult. And that was very detrimental, but to the outside world, it seemed like I was okay. And I always portrayed myself as okay because that's what I was taught. You always act like everything's fine, like nothing bothers you. It's something that was instilled in me, unfortunately. So I just acted like everything was fine, but I was actually depressed. I was very angry. I had major anger issues. I was resentful of a lot of people in my life that had done me wrong or whatever. I was just this angry ball of anger walking around, and everybody that was around me like could feel it. Like even my family was like, "What happened to you? Like, why are you so mean now?" but I think it was also a defense mechanism. I turned into this like badass, if you will,
Mm.
because it was a defense mechanism so nobody can mess with me anymore because so many people had messed with me and taken advantage of me that I turned into this like badass, and I was like, you know, you can't mess with me and I'll beat you up, and you know, starting an argument. And I was just like I said, I was actually angry. So like I
Yeah.
used to like want to fight people and argue with people, and I would go at it like in all day every day, and it used to make me happy, or so I thought. I thought it was fulfilling because I thought I was like showing people, but little did
Mhm.
I know, all I was doing was hurting myself because that's not really who I was inside. I wasn't an angry person. I'm really a genuinely nice person with a really good heart. So I didn't realize that I was actually doing a lot of harm to myself, a lot of self sabotage. I did a lot of things that I should, you know, shouldn't have done. And I think it's because I also had low self esteem and I didn't love myself back then. And I didn't even know that self love was a thing, or healing, or, you know, even counseling. You know, wasn't in counseling back then. And it wasn't until my late 20s that I started
Mhm.
going to counseling for the first time in my life. And it was absolutely a game changer for me. Also, self help books. I know people always laugh when I say that, but self help books were like a huge piece of my healing. It really was because it made me become more self aware of like myself and the
Yeah.
things I was doing and why I was doing them. And I was like, oh, okay, this all makes sense now. And that's kind of what started me off on my journey. And I was in a toxic work environment also for 7 years, a very long time. And I didn't even know there was such a thing as a toxic work environment either. You just think these people are just assholes. So
Oh my gosh.
yeah, so I
So
didn't
much
real and
work
then
you
once
have
I
going
got
on.
promoted and I like left that job and I realized how toxic it was after I left. Like when I was in this normal environment with normal people, I was like, how did I like deal with that for all that time? I had no idea. But then again, I also had no choice because I was making pretty good money considering that I didn't have a college degree yet at that time and single parent, you know. So you do what you got to do. But it was once I got into this new work environment, I also was working with people who were now college educated, which I had never worked with before, and just positive. Everybody was just so different and supportive, and it was just so different. And it motivated me. It put like so much drive into me because I was like, wow, these people are so impressive. I want to be on their level. You know, I want to be like smart like them. And that's actually what made me want to go back to school. I actually started going back to
Mhm.
college
Mhm.
because of that, because I wanted to work my way up the corporate ladder, and that's kind of what led me to everything else. You know, I was also a single mom, like I mentioned a bunch of times, single mom, really broke, really poor. I was in $25,000 of credit card debt, which was also added to my depression and to my anger because I never got financial help from my kid's dad. So that
Mm.
added to a lot of that. And then once I got out, I was 100% debt free by the time I was 30 years old. I had put myself through college, and it just was a game changer for me. I just like realized like, man, I can do all these things. Like who knew? And I just started looking at myself in a different light and started learning to love myself, and through the counseling and the self-help books and just all my work like on myself, it's led me to who I am today and everything that I'm doing. Thank
That's so
you.
impressive and
Of course.
congratulations to you. I have some questions. What led you to counseling, or to was it the self-help
It
books
was
first,
counseling
or was it
first.
counseling first? Where did you step into that, like reaching out to
That's
find,
a great
and what
question. I
led you
don't
to
know
that?
what led me to counseling. Oh, actually, I do. So it was my last toxic relationship. We went to couples counseling together. Uh, and that's kind of what like I was like, oh, this is good, you know. And then when me and him broke up, I still continued to see the therapist that we were seeing, and it helped a lot. And that's actually where I started talking about my sexual abuse. I'd never talked about it with anyone outside of like my family before. And so that was very healing to just be in a space that I could just say these things that I never was able to talk about before because I was
Mm.
told not to talk about it. I had a lot of shame and guilt for talking about it because my family always used to try to make us feel bad if we ever spoke about it because that's the family secret and you don't talk about those things. You know, nobody needs to know that. So I
Of
think,
course.
yeah, I think that's how the counseling started. And I saw how much it was helping me and I just stuck with it. And I still, to this day, see a counselor every week, not because anything's wrong in my life, but just because I believe in it so much. And I think it helps to just talk to a person on a, regular basis about whatever it is that's happening in your life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like
Hmm.
preventative medicine, right? Like you don't you want to take care of yourself before you have
Yeah,
something majorly
absolutely. I
wrong.
agree.
Yeah. Um, I had
No
another
worries.
question. Now it left my head, but it will come back. Um, so I'm just thinking, and I will have my editor take this part out so that we don't sound like we don't know what we're talking about. Um, no, when we talked also before the show, you mentioned now, and so you mentioned about the counseling. You are now also in counseling with
Yes, I
your
am.
mom, which I
Hmm.
think is fascinating. How did you talk a little bit about what you're doing in that counseling and how
Okay.
did you
Yeah.
get her to go
So
with you?
I asked my mom. So to give you guys just a little bit more background. So again, childhood sexual abuse. My mom knew about it and didn't do anything. So I had a lot of anger and resentment, and if, believe it or not, more ill feelings towards her than my dad was the one who did it. I don't know how to explain it, but that's just how I felt, right? Because I felt like she should have protected me.
Hmm.
So I have been going through a whole lot of healing and work, a lot of deep work on myself. And I was actually talking to my counselor about it one day because I knew I always wanted to go to family counseling with my mother, but I was always like terrified and scared just because you just like even for to ask her to go was like a scary thought. And I had told my counselor one day, I was like, if my mom died tomorrow, I would never forgive myself for not going to counseling with her. That would always be on my heart. So I think I just need to bite the bullet and ask her. And I did. I reached out, like, I think 2 days later, I reached out and I think I just sent her a text and I was like, hey, would you be interested in going to counseling, like family counseling with me? And she was like, yeah, she was very receptive, which I was totally expecting her to like just ignore me or say, no way. But she was like, yeah, that's totally fine. And, we can do that. And I was like, wow, okay. So we were on a wait list for a little bit. And then finally we got to see a counselor. And we've been in counseling for like 2.5 months now. And it's been very, very good, way better than I expected because she's been able to kind of give me closure on a lot of things that I never thought I'd get. Like she's basically admitted like I know I wasn't the best mom. I know I messed up here. I know I did this. I know I should have done this. I know but it's I also have a lot of empathy towards her because in our sessions
Yeah.
I've realized or I've learned that she was also being abused by my dad. Like my dad was also a narcissist on top of a pedophile. So he was actually
Hmm.
like physically and sexually abusive to my mother too, but I didn't obviously know that because I was a kid and I didn't know what that stuff was. And so now that I am in it with her, I understand her a little
Sure.
bit better. And I'm like, how could this woman have helped me when the same thing was happening to her? She was in the same situation. So, I have a lot of empathy towards her and she's apologized. And I think I've gotten a lot of closure from it, which I honestly never thought I'd ever get in my life. I was just kind of set on like whatever. I lost my mom. Like my mom's like physically around, but she's not like mentally around. And I just kind of accepted that for what it was. So now that we are doing this, we talk a little bit more. It's not where I want it to be. Like we are not like BFFs or have like the best relationship ever, but we email each other and we talk about like how we feel. And she
Hmm.
apologizes and I apologize because I've done things too. I've said very hurtful things to her in the past as well. That things that she still remembers from when I was
Sure.
like 18 that I said that still like hurt her. And I was like, wow. But I was, a young, dumb kid at 18. And I told her, I'm like, my intention was to
Right.
hurt you. I did want you to feel bad about it. But now that I'm an adult, I do feel bad.
Right. And I think a lot of us at that age are
Hmm.
we're exploring our independence. Teenagers say mean things to their
Right.
parents. They just do.
Hmm.
I think that's part of it.
No, I
I
agree.
don't know,
I have
maybe
a teenager.
maybe they don't all do it, but I remember saying some mean, some hurtful things to my mom too, because you're growing into becoming independent, like preparing yourself to
Right.
leave
Yeah.
and go out on your own. And so was your has your mom, what a gift that you two are able
Yeah.
to share this experience now. Was she had she been in
No,
counseling
she's
before
never seen
this
a
on her
counselor in
own
her life
ever?
until we started this. And she still doesn't see a counselor on her own. But it's my
Oh my
hopes
gosh.
that she sees that this is working for us and that she will then be able to go off on her own. And I've told her that before. I really hope that you go off on your own with someone one day to work on things because she has a lot of things to work on. And it's definitely a cultural thing too. We're Mexican, so it's definitely like she's even said, we don't need this. Why can't we just leave the past in the past? And I'm like, that would be great if you could just leave the past in the
Mhm.
past, but that's just not how it works. So those are my hopes with her is that she'll find her own counselor.
Right. We're not wired
Hmm.
that way as
Yeah, and I
humans.
think she's slowly but surely starting to see that counseling helps.
That's such a, like I said, amazing gift that you were able to give
Yeah,
her.
yeah, I'm happy about it, and I never thought I'd be the one in the family to like be the not the fixer because I don't consider myself the fixer, but just the one to like help people heal and go see counselors and you know stuff like that, mental health stuff that I think is really important.
There has to be one person in a family. I was actually on a networking call earlier today in a group setting, and somebody was talking about you as like the people who are listening being the one in the
Hmm.
family to do things differently. Someone has to step up. So
Hmm.
why couldn't it be you? Like
Right.
I'm speaking to the listeners, I'm speaking to you. Like who takes the takes a different path and changes the
Hmm.
trajectory
I
of family
totally
history.
am that person in my family. And like I said, I never expected for that to happen, but if it has to be me, it has to be
Right.
me. I'm the only one that's like an entrepreneur and think very public about my abuse. My family is obviously they're not. So I know it was very weird for them when I started talking about it on Facebook and stuff and they're like, "What the hell is wrong with you? Why are you?" But I think they've also seen me heal and work through a lot of things and they're like it leaves them like maybe I should try that because it's helping her and she's doing so well now. So I think by my example there I'm hopefully leading them in the right path.
So many people I've talked to have privately shared stories, not exactly your story, but stories of abuse and the shame around it. And they are so unwilling and
Hmm.
afraid to talk about it
Yeah.
publicly,
Hmm.
which I get. I get it. However, by you standing up and sharing, you allow other people to
Hmm. Absolutely.
see that they're not alone. What what was it that inspired you to start talking about it? Was it just part of your
So I
healing
actually
journey,
started a
or is there
blog.
something more?
That's what started everything, to be honest with you. This was years ago too. I can't even remember. 2019, 2018, I think I started the blog. And that's where I actually started talking about it. And it was like freeing. I felt free after I spoke about it in the blog. And then I started doing Facebook Lives and talking about it in videos and things like that. And every time I spoke about it, I felt better and better and better. And I felt like I didn't have this thing holding me down anymore, this thing that was like so shameful. And then I also realized in talking about it was like, it's not my shame to hold. I didn't do anything wrong. I was a freaking kid. I didn't even know how to put words to what was happening to me. And I'm like, that's my dad's shame to hold. So I think that was a huge piece of why speaking is so important. And I always tell people, like, your truth is so important and your voice, God gave us all a voice to speak. Use it. And the only person that benefits from your secrets is the person that told you to keep it a secret in the first place, usually perpetrator or abuser of some sort, they're the only one that wins from it. And that's on purpose, you know? So I think it's important to speak your truth, whether other people believe you or not, whether other people say, you know, I don't believe that or you're a liar, whatever. It's still your truth. It's still your story, and nobody could ever take that from you. And I always tell the ladies that I work with that because it's so important.
Yeah. Yes. And now that you mentioned the ladies that you work with, how did you come to start this organization? Share a little bit about what you're doing because
Sure.
it's such
So
important
I have
work.
a nonprofit organization called And Rise. So the and means your story isn't over yet. There's more to tell, and the rise means rising above any adversities that you've faced. So we're an organization that empowers women to be the best version of themselves. And so we offer free counseling. We offer free support groups for female trauma survivors, whether that's sexual trauma, emotional trauma, physical trauma, anything like that. And then we also have like women's empowerment events. We do life coaching. We do personal development, professional development. So we want to help women be that best version, whether it's personally or professionally. And I think it's really important. And I just basically created an organization that I needed once upon a time when I was going through all of my stuff, you know, and being able to have a safe space where people could come and talk about these things that do have a lot of guilt and shame associated with them. And when they do try to talk to friends and family about it, they are shamed or they feel worse off, you know, after trying to talk to someone about it because they're like, oh my gosh, you're still talking about that? You're not over that yet? Or why don't you just leave them already? Oh my gosh, because it's just not that easy. Like you've heard the statistics with domestic abuse survivors, it usually takes eight or nine times for them to finally leave their abuser. And it's not just like, oh yeah, they know they need to leave them, they know that, but it's
Yeah.
harder, easier said than done, especially when this person is being physically abusive to you, you know. So I love what I do. I love helping women, and I love helping them just get to that next level in life, whatever that is for them, you know. I think it's really important to just empower women, and we are very, very powerful people. And personally, that's why I think that we're trying to be held back right now. You know, all the things that are happening in the world. I think there's people out there that know how powerful we are, and they're trying to keep us down. Because I think if we all came together, we'll blow this freaking world out of the water. Like, and I think we're better leaders than men personally, but that's just me speaking.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just my personal
That's just
opinion.
my opinion. Yeah. What do you see what's next for you?
So we're definitely small but mighty. We have some pretty. We're gonna be 3 years old in October. But we have big awesome things coming up. We have our biggest like fundraiser coming up in October. It's called the Bet on Us Casino Night fundraiser. We have an event coming up at the end of this month with Bumble, with the dating app, which I'm super excited about. So that just shows me that we're growing. There's people out there that really believe in our mission. And I guess what's next is I really want us to be a worldwide organization. And this is a long term goal, like 10 plus years away. But I really see us being an organization where we help women all around the world because, as you know, there's other countries that don't have any type of resources or rights for women or anything like that. So I want to be that organization where women can just come to, well, for whatever it is that they need, free counseling, a support group, you know, help with their resume or help with getting to that next level in their career or changing careers even. And how do I do that, you know, or just educating them also on healthy relationships, what's normal, what's not, red flags, you know, pay attention to these signs. That way, you know, I believe in education prevention. So to preventing sexual and domestic abuse from happening in the first place, I think it's really, really important. So I have a lot of missions in my life. And also another thing that I want to do in the future too is bring more awareness to the Black and Brown communities around mental health and just putting the word out there that it's okay. It's not for crazy people. Doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It's just okay to talk to somebody about whatever it is that's going on with you. And we need to normalize mental health services for sure.
Absolutely. Healthcare is healthcare,
Yeah.
whether it's mental health care, physical health care.
Hmm.
It's
Your
all
physical health is
healthcare.
oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I
Cool.
remember the question I was going to ask you earlier. Yeah. So it was more of a comment, I guess, than a question around. You were talking about that you didn't even know that that
Mhm.
that counseling was a thing, or that what was happening in your family was
Mhm.
not quote unquote normal. And I just wanted to jump in and say, like, right, I've spoken to so many of my guests and clients and whomever about how we tend to beat ourselves up for
Mhm.
not knowing. But how would
Right.
you know if that's
Absolutely.
all
I
you
think
know?
that's really important that you said that because I always talk to my ladies about this and because they blame themselves a lot. I should have done this. I should have known better. I should have, done something different. And I'm like, you did the best you could at the moment with the information you had at that moment. And if all you knew how to do, if all you knew how to
Mm-hmm.
do at the moment was freeze, then that's all you could have done. And if you fight, then that's great, whatever. But don't be upset at yourself for not handling it a certain way because your body does react to trauma. And some people freeze. You've heard of it: fawn, freeze, fight, flight, all that stuff. Like it's real stuff, and everybody is different.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna lie.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a freezer. I freeze. But the person next to me could be a fighter, and that's okay. There's no right or wrong way like how to deal with things that come up, especially when they're traumatic. So I always tell people, give yourself grace. You did the best that you you did the best that you could at the moment with the information that you had. But yes, you're right. People do tend to blame themselves a lot for like coulda, shoulda, woulda
Right.
done this. But that doesn't really help when you're trying to heal because that's just like more self blame and that doesn't make you feel any better. So just giving yourself grace is a really huge piece of healing and just forgiving yourself too. Self forgiveness is a huge piece of it as well, and saying I forgive myself for maybe staying too long in that relationship or allowing somebody to do that to me. It we tend to forgive other people easier than we do ourselves, especially as women. We're very very hard on ourselves. So I really think it's important to just relay that message out to whoever's listening right now that maybe needs to hear that because yeah, you do the best you can, and that's all you can do.
Yes. 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 Thank you for sharing that. My last question before we go, because this has been such a valuable conversation, is when you need that extra boost of energy, you're getting through a long day or you're starting a day and you've got a lot to get through. What's the song that you
Oh my
listen to?
gosh.
What's your hype song?
I think you asked me this before. Um, I think I said, was it Destiny's Child? What was the name of the song? Independent. I think it's an Independent Woman. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Um, yeah, I think so too. Yeah. I mean, I have a
Okay.
lot of
Yeah.
different songs that I like, and it really just depends on my mood. But yeah, I love Destiny's Child or Beyonce.
That's a perfect song for you. We're going to put a link to that in the show notes. And the other thing I'd like to put a link to in the show notes is how somebody could get in touch with you if they want to
Sure.
continue
So
the
you can
conversation.
reach me directly at my email. So it's Jennifer at womenrisechicago.org. Or you can just go to our website as well and check out the website, www.womenrisechicago.org, and check out all the things that we're doing. Sign up for support group or sign up for an event that we have coming up. We have a lot of great events, but definitely feel free to reach out if you want to talk to me about anything or ask questions. I'm always happy to talk to anyone. Appreciate it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for
Thank you
joining
for
me
having
today
me.
on Fine is a Four-Letter Word, Jennifer.